Okay, happy Monday, people. Right, so I'm back at work. My mom's come back home, so it was really awesome having her here, and I had such an amazing time. And had the workshop this weekend in London, which was absolutely beautiful. And so I'm back at work this week, and I wanted to share something with you. So I'm dropping a radio show this week, speaking to a coach of mine that I coached with last year, and she was also the person who taught me about DNA activation, one of the two people and stuff. And it was a really interesting conversation because we spoke about the concept of neurodivergency and how that is showing up in the world and her whole journey with it. So that's dropping this week. But we had this conversation about 2 months ago. And as I was having the conversation with her and we were recording and stuff, I was referring to myself as neurotypical during this whole conversation and having this and she was bringing up these things and everything. And afterwards, when I finished the call, I was a bit like, whoa, this is interesting. All the stuff she spoke about had this little place inside of me went zzz. And I was like, oh, what is this all about? So the whole concept about neurodivergency is literally your brain works differently to how other people, neurotypical people's brains work, right? So they, if you think about ADHD or autism, depression, anxiety, dyslexia, all of these different terms for how your brain works differently, they all fall into that category, right? And so I was like, whoa, this is quite interesting, because there was something inside of me going, your brain works differently. Your husband is constantly telling you, Yolandi, your brain. And not in a bad way. It's a big joke in our house because he's like, if he says left, I don't think right, I think purple. And he's like, dude, how do you get to these answers? Literally. And I remember when I was younger and I did my my NLP training, and my coach was like, your brain works completely different to everyone else's brain. And I kind of, just park it because it's funny, and the way that I think and the way that I work and everything is really different. But I'm extremely organized, and I'm one of those people to the point of being OCD. I can, I can organize the shit out of anything, right? So, and then when I was speaking to Laureen, I'm like, oh my God, this sounds really weird. And I actually went and I did a test, and an online test, because I was like, whoa, I need to look into this. And obviously the results came back, and I'm like, of course I am neurodivergent. Not that I thought that before. And this shows me again how important it is to start educating ourselves on things that we see and that we hear and that we feel. Because my interest was piqued when last year I was coaching a really dear friend of mine, and she had actually just been diagnosed, and she was like, wow, she didn't realize what was going on with her and why she was feeling all these emotions and these feelings and stuff. And there was something inside me that was really whoa, it must be so hectic and so hard to be able to go through this in life, right? And that's why I wanted to speak to Laureen, because she basically last year had herself diagnosed and had spent most of her adult life not knowing this about herself, and then learning so much about herself through the process, which I thought was really interesting. So the point of my conversation today, brain all over the show, is that I really feel that sometimes there are things that come onto our path to show us more about who we are. And for me, this thing came onto my path, this concept, this idea came onto my path to help me to appreciate how I have been changing and adjusting parts of myself so that I could fit into society. So when I look back at my history, I wanted to go and study drama when I was in high school, but that didn't happen, and I'm quite glad it didn't happen. But when I came back from traveling overseas, I got into jobs that was corporate jobs. I got into project management. I got into running call centers. I got into all of these things where it was very structured, very organized. And because I was also like in the gifted kids program in school, I knew I could just shift and change and make myself do things like other people needed me to do things, right? So that's why I'm so good at being organized. That's why I can analyze. That's why I can like literally make my brain go into little boxes and compartments. But then you lose touch with all the magic, right? And so we do a lot of this stuff and we chop and change ourselves to be able to fit in and to survive in society. But the parts of us that are like magic and happy and free and like this whole like just the parts of you that feels really good and nurturing is the parts that sort of shrivel because we are so on a mission to fit into society and function and survive and like do our thing, that this other part of us like completely shrivels away. And so for me, I'm quite lucky in that regard that I got into this job where I am now, where I get to work with people and where I have taught myself how to unlearn the rigidity. So the rigidity is still very present in my life. And every time I start feeling like out of control or really like, oh, I don't feel safe, then I go back to making lists and I like pack my cupboards and I sort Lego and do whatever the fuck it is so that I can start feeling like okay again, because the other side of my brain is like all wild and free and all of that, and my human is like, no, I need safety. So I think it's very important to become aware of like where are we masking, where are we like taking on traits of things that's not actually in our nature, and like where do we need to start playing into those spaces where our real creative and nourishing and really happy places lie. Okay, because that part of myself that was the structured, like overly critical, like have to do this, da 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 da, you know, like that real masculine side took over my life for many, many years, and it didn't bring me any joy. And now that I'm in my fairy place, in my unicorn land, whatever you want to call it, like I can take those pieces and that brings me a lot of joy, and that really, it's so lovely for me that I get to have that as part of my job, right? That I go into Magic Land as part of my job. But I'm also very aware that if I was just playing there, I'd probably float out to space and never come back. And so my husband's always going, you need something to ground you. Like he'll give me accounts to do and stuff like that so that I can just be in the space where I'm like also present here in 3D and not just off with the fairies the whole time. So for me, it's really been a journey of finding that space of balance. And the more I become aware of like, why am I like this? How am I doing this? Like, how do I get myself to function in a space of balance that feels good for me? Because what often happens is when you have this mindset, when you are neurodivergent, you start beating up on yourself because you're not getting things done on time and you're not playing towards a schedule and you don't feel good enough and all of that. And these things have to change. We have to become aware of the fact that we don't have to just fit into the structures, but that you can forget stuff and you can be all over the show and you can have 5,000 thoughts and it is okay. You don't have to be in the structure all the time. Okay, there needs to be a place where you feel like, I feel good, I feel safe, I feel happy. And if it's not in that neurotypical world, or it's not just in that world, and you find like me, ooh, there's my balance, then good for you. Do what makes you feel good. Like my kid says, do you, okay? You do you. Like you need to find out. But for me, it was such a surprise having this revelation at my age. And I'm like, oh my God, this is actually like, I feel all of this. Like I totally understand what she's talking about. So my call to you is to start looking into, if there's something within you going, this could be me, start doing the homework, start reading up on this, okay? You can have a listen to the radio show this week. I'll be dropping it probably in the next couple of days. But start checking it out, because we end up spending a massive amount of our time beating ourselves up because we're not performing and functioning as neurotypical people, okay? Because we're not sticking to the schedules, and we're not showing up consistently, and we're not doing things like we should be doing things. But it is like, literally, it is okay. It is okay to do things on your own terms. And you first need to understand who you are so that you can see how you want to do it. So for me, I choose, I'm not going to go and get myself diagnosed because I can see all the signs. It's fine. I don't need medication. What if you need medication? What if you're going to feel better if you need medication? What if you're going to be able to change your practices to make yourself feel better? Okay, so it was so good for me to have had that conversation with her, because it's made me pay attention to places where I could see I was going back into OCD or into my lists and all of this stuff. And like, where do I need to find the balance that's right for me? And it is different for every single one of us. So educate yourself, find out what feels good for you, start listening to people. There's so many amazing people speaking about these things. And the more I look at this, the more I think there's more neurodivergent people out there than there probably is neurotypical people. So just a thought, I'm just throwing it out there, but see what feels good for you. Because at the end of the day, you can't navigate by someone else's rules. You have to navigate your life and your happy and your equilibrium and your safety by what feels good to you. But you need to educate yourself. You need to like go out there and check things out and see what you can find that feels good for you, and then navigate according to that. Okay, so that for me is like a big message at the moment, is like, you need to do you. You need to do stuff that feels good for you. You need to do stuff that makes you feel safe, because with what's going on in the world and the overwhelm and everything that's happening right now, and it has been for 2 years, like, your anxieties are going to be at an all-time high. So you have to do things to make you feel, I'm good, I'm safe, okay, so that you can survive and so that you can function okay, and in a space of like feeling good in yourself, in where you are at this point in time. Okay, so I will just watch out on my profiles this week. I will be dropping that interview with Laureen. And I also suggest, like, you know, if this resonates with you, find people who are speaking about this. There are plenty of amazing podcasts and blogs and people to follow out there in the world who are really making a big difference in educating and helping, because it will shift your perspective. And when you know yourself better and you can feel safe again, that's the most important thing. Okay, so yeah, so that's my message for this week. And I'm back. And if you do feel like you want to check out some of my services, there's a few really cool new things that I've been speaking about lately, decoding your purpose. So if you're needing to find out more about like how to connect with your purpose, not just what it is, but actually how to start living it and how to implement it, come and give me a shout, and let's have a chat. Okay, so have a fantastic week. I'll be dropping that radio show this week, and then I will connect again with you next week. So enjoy.